Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're just going to start now. We've waited a couple more minutes for everyone to join, but I think we now have a quorum today, so we can get started. My name's Charles Green. I'm part of the marketing team here at Bellatrix Software. And firstly, thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join the call today. And today we're going to be discussing Agile development and how you can create what we're calling balanced Agile processes. And we're also going to look at some of the typical threats that you're going to face when implementing Agile. For those of you not familiar with Bellatrix, just very briefly, we are a leading provider of software development services with expertise in product and mobile application development. Everyone here in the company is trained in Agile, so we have a whole lot of experience with methodology. We've been there when it's worked well, we've been there when it hasn't gone as well, and we've learned from those mistakes. Indeed, we were actually one of the first companies in Latin America to adopt Agile at scale. Our focus is on innovation and really shaping the concepts and ideas of our clients into world-class software products. And we have delivery centers in Mendoza and Buenos Aires in Argentina, as well as Lima, Peru. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panel of experts today, Monica Colombo and Matias Lopez. Monica, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, of course. My name is Monica Colombo. I am working for Bellatrix for the last 13 years, and I have 25 years of experience in IT industry. I am QA director of the company and program manager.
Hi everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Hi everyone. My name is Matias. I've been working in Bellatrix since 2006. Currently, I'm working as a Scrum Master on 3 different projects. And the idea during this webinar is to share some Agile experience with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Matti. So we have a really a straightforward agenda for today. Firstly, we're going to discuss how Agile has become the new reality in today's technology organizations. Then we're going to discuss what balanced Agile processes are and what they look like. And then we're going to discuss some of the different threats that you may face when implementing Agile, as well as how to provide tips on how to overcome them. Now, I should mention that today's session is going to be very open, so if you have a question at any time, do let me know. And you can do this either by typing into the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen or via Twitter. And we're going to be tweeting throughout the webinar using the hashtag #AgileTheNewBlack. And so you can use that to follow along on the webinar, but also to ask questions if anything comes to mind. And I know we did receive a couple of questions in the registration forms, and we'll be taking them later on in the presentation. But without further ado, jumping straight into the content, we know today that technology executives are already well familiar with Agile development. And actually, the vast majority of organizations we work with already have some experience with Agile. Not all organizations, but the majority. And there's good reason for this. And there's good reason why so many companies are looking to Agile. Agile helps maintain the flexibility in your development projects, which is critical today when both the business and the technology environment is changing so rapidly. It helps you remain close to your clients. It provides you a framework for regular interaction between key stakeholders. And research has also shown that it significantly increases development speed and the time it takes to get software to market. In addition, it's also been shown that it improves and increases the motivation of your team members as well. But at the same time, recent data suggests that just 16% of companies describe themselves as pure Agile companies, but a further 75% stated that they were hybrid or leaning towards Agile development. So it's clear that many companies today are really in this transition phase. So perhaps you've already implemented Agile or implemented an Agile pilot. You've seen some success. You've had some wins with it. You've seen that it provides you with that flexibility and that closeness, the increased development speed that you're looking for. But now you're in the process of expanding and scaling up these Agile efforts. But in our experience, we've seen that it can be tough for companies during this implementation process to maintain their adherence to Agile and really the principles of Agile development. So it's for this reason that I'm going to pass you over now to Monica, who's going to talk to you exactly about what we're calling balanced agile processes. What are they, and how you can ensure your processes don't become either too strict or too weak.
Thanks. We can define two extremes of the project, too robust or strict, or too weak or fragile. Too robust, this occurs when we are adhering to the process is considered more important than the needs of individuals, of each team members. If we have a fragile process, that occurs when processes are only used in a few isolated best practices, or could be involved some learned lessons from similar projects in order to try to improve overall results. They are fragile processes. If you sit in one or in the other extreme, you need to make changes to find a balanced agile process. It is to find your best way and the right process that you need to do the things in your project. A balanced agile process is one that satisfies the project, the stakeholders, and the team needs. We have to be focused on that, as well as the company goals too, because we have to think in the company that we are working. Every project needs processes, and depending on specific factors, you'll choose a strict, balanced, or weak processes. The most important aspect is that everyone agrees and understands the process in order to be able to implement it. Agile tends to adapt more easily to flexible organization and projects with a rapid rate of changes. Some call this hybrid implementation, while others will say it is a simple hybrid agile. When you implement portion of the full agile process to a project, the idea is to identify the things that we need, because it could be good for us to have one or other. The best idea normally is to have a balanced agile processes, because some projects, some companies, and some people need different kind of process. A company will adopt basic aspect of agile model, mixed with internal processes, because the companies have their own processes, and aspects to make implementation possible. We have to think on this mix and have the best formula for us. Some agile processes implemented in the short term tend to become a personalized or proprietary process. In other words, it only works for the team executing it. We could fail in this situation. We have to think in a process that could be mature during the project, and the idea is to reuse this process to be successful. This is not viable for the long term, because you can't reproduce the processes in other teams in the company. Okay, we are going to move forward to the situation that can become threats. Include there are no defining requirements backlog, and we have to think that the team be either waiting for more information, which has a negative impact, or both performance and motivation. Identifying that what the customer wants is hard when the information is poor, or when they only have defining requirement. For example, when you have an epic in a backlog, you have a big user story and you don't have the detail that you need. How do we avoid threats in this situation? What we can do? How we can help our team? The team members must work hard and help to collect information to load the requirement as precisely as possible, generating more value for the client. The idea all the time is to add value to the client, to the project. The Scrum Master pushes the client to be aware of what's happening day to day and involves them to act as a real product owner, providing information, priorities, criteria for development team. Okay, if we have that, which tips we can share with you? For complex projects or some business models with a large number of business rules, or a lot of user stories, or big epics, or the idea is to may find multiple product owners. Each product owner has ownership of one part of the backlog. The idea is to share the information and work together and use the same process for each project. Or for the same project, we can use the same process. On the other hand, we can use the QA engineer role because they can also act as information analysts, because sometimes our client doesn't have business analysts to care the information, the workflows, etc. Over to you, Mati.
Okay. Okay, I think based on my experience that what it makes a difference is to help the product owner, right? Most of the time the product owners is not fully dedicated to have a team or to provide the information that the team require because they're busy with other things. So I think that as a team, as a part of a team or as a Scrum Master, we have to go one step forward and try to help the act as a facilitator and write some of the user stories and try to communicate to the product owner what information we need in order to make easier to him to provide the little pieces of information that we are missing. And this kind of help will make a difference with the product owner.
Okay. On the next situation, when the client does not share his or her version and the roadmap with the team, we are in trouble sometimes because the roadmap of a product is a high-level overview plan that describes how it's expected that the product will evolve in time. The ideas of the product owner are all together there, and we can imagine what things we have to do. If the team has access to this information, it has more visibility about the future of the project. This will help align the budget as well as analyze possible threats together with the client. How do we avoid threats in these situations? The product owner must share the vision with the team and stakeholders, because they have to agree on that, of the expected evolution of the product to achieve the goals. It is a big picture, so they understand what they are building, the future of that, and we can identify if we have some risks or if we have some problems to solve. We use a roadmap in a project ensures us the backlog focuses of tactical issues and strategic issues remain in the roadmap. That roadmap conceptualizes the backlog. The product owner manages the roadmap, while the team members and stakeholders contribute to make it richer. Okay, what do you think about that, Mati? How do you help?
Well, I think that it's not a minor thing to have a roadmap. You have the team to be motivated because they are aware about what they are building, right? And in the other hand, for the client, it enable the team to create a more robust product because they can be aware what technology use, how to implement it if they have the big picture in front of them. So my advice here as a Scrum Master is try hard to get a roadmap. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add something because in some clients we share this roadmap, and one of the things that we could discover is risks, because sometimes the client, when he think about the roadmap, they think in the product, a clean product, we can say, a clean process, a clean development to do, and sometimes the client never think in technical problems or what things could be adjust to others. For example, when we think about architecture tools, or sometimes that we need something, or we have to think in the precedence of time, or which task we have to finish previously than another, the critical task that we have, for example.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, one more thing.
Yes.
In addition, sorry, I think I totally agree with you. And in addition, the fact of having this roadmap enables to identify some technical dependencies, right? And will help the product owner to prioritize those backlog, those stories in the backlog. So it's very important to have a roadmap.
Yeah. Okay. On the next situation, when no one knows how the project is performing, this can occur with regards to the general status or the overall progress of the project. It can lead to project failure. This happens when no one is in charge of constantly updating the project critical information on the issue tracker. Of course, depending on the issue tracker that the team is using, both at a user level or user story level. We have to think in both. Or when the wrong tool is used, or when there is a pure understanding of the use of tracking tools. How do we avoid threats in this situation? The tips that they can share with you are the team must add data methodologically to the tool. We have to know how to work with the tool. Some people think that Agile does not include formal reporting. That is not real, but actually it's quite the opposite. It is all the data enloaded into the tracking tools. The company will have up-to-date reports available at any time. We have to work on that. We have to work with the product owner and the stakeholders to share with them how to use the issue tracker. In our case, for example, we can use the issue tracker that our client use, or which we suggest to our client which one to use. It is not a problem for us to use open source tools or licensed tools. The Scrum Master must help the team solving problems and internal conflicts and achieve project goals. The idea is not to push the product owner too hard. The idea is to share with them our knowledge about the processes, how to work, and share good lessons learned that we have in our project. Okay, what do you think, Mati, about that?
Well, based on my experience, I think a key point is identify which is the problem, right? It's a lack of knowledge about the tool. Is the tool itself is too hard? Try to identify the problem is really important. I think that one of the strongest points is that the Scrum provide real-time information to the stakeholders. So it's very important to identify where is the problem. Maybe in my experience, help a lot to explain how the tool works, to show them with an examples, create documentation, and be available to them to ask questions about the process and how to use it. So I think that it's very important to identify if there is another internal problem. Yeah.
Sometimes could be the code of the issue tracker. I remember one situation that our client suggested us to use an issue tracker, and when we began using that, we tried to follow to have a tracking issue, and it was impossible because when we report the story, we only have a conversation, it was impossible to use.
Yeah.
And we suggest to our client to change the tool, and he did it.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the things that you can talk in a retrospective, right, about the tool and make adjustment, right? Not all the tools apply in the same way for a particular client, yeah. And as a Scrum Master, we have to identify these kind of things and make proposals with the team about how to improve these situations.
Okay. The next situation, when there is no good planning sessions, the team does not have enough autonomy or freedom to plan their own sprints, and the task size are imposed. We're talking about empowerment. In Agile is one of the advantages that we have. The team have the power to take decisions in a lot of things. When the plan time box is not respected or it changed, that is part of the thing that we have to discuss. In some other case, the team does not participate in the planning session because they don't understand the objective of the current iteration. The idea is to share the goal of the sprint and, of course, understand the goal of the sprint product. The team needs a grooming session sometimes. We suggest to our client to have grooming sessions, previously the planning session, The idea is to understand the goals and avoid wasting time trying to figure out that. Okay, one of the things that we suggest to our client, the tips that we have is to ask questions. The team and the client, when they don't understand something, the idea is to be proactive and talk. Communication is one of the most important things in Agile. Based on what's on the backlog, teams have the responsibility to decide what they will be working on and the tasks needed for each user story. The product owner must work in advance of each sprint to define the correct prioritization of tasks, focusing on the expected deliverables, what the product owner has in mind. The idea is to share their ideas. What is he thinking? It is good to invest time at the beginning of the project. I am talking about something that we put a name in the company. The name is Sprint Zero, in order to agree on the accepted criterion that will last for the entire life cycle in the project. Matti, do you have any experience of that?
Yeah, I think that the planning sessions are very useful. In one hand, for the motivations, and in the other hand, too, it may change the priorities, right? Because the product owner knows most of the time, well, know about their business, but probably know so much about technical things, right? So in this kind of meeting, we can discover some kind of dependencies that may change how the priorities on the sprint are going to be faced. So I think that one of my advice here is don't be afraid of asking. Don't be afraid to make suggestions. Don't be afraid of propose changes in the way that the things are going to be performed, because the goal of the whole team is to achieve the goal, and the way to do it is a mix of the knowledge of the business given by the product owner and the technical skills given by the team.
Thank you, Matti. The fourth one is when there is very little Agile experience, each team members acts individually and perform their tasks without taking into consideration the sprint goals. This results in lost team synergy. What are we thinking? What we can do it? The idea is to contagious the spirit of Agile, and the idea is to reuse our experience in Agile. How do we avoid threats in this situation? The tips are Agile team members have more freedom to make decisions, but also higher and mutual responsibility towards project results. Be empowered. That is the tip, the principal tip. Self-organization teams are the idea. The idea is to use this empowerment. The Scrum Master role has to be defining and following. He has to do a lot of things. He must lead all the activities needed to solve impediments while finding and boosting internal and external benefits. He has to propose, execute, and moderate meetings. He maintains and improves the communication. He provides feedback to the people and for the client. He helps team members solving questions regarding the Agile process because it's one of his most important side and most important Agile role. He negotiates points with different opinions. He works to create realistic estimations. The idea is to help the people to identify the time that he needs to achieve that. He negotiates with the client when they need it. Other important point there is the team size, because can also threaten team performance. The ideal team size is 7 to 9 team members. The larger teams are harder to manage sometimes. In those cases, the solution is to create sub-teams and have Scrum of Scrum. I am thinking in a special project that we have in the company today, and we have 5 teams, and we have one person that have this role to be the Scrum Master of the Scrum Masters. We have different, we can say Scrum Masters, and they have other person who coordinates their work. The idea is to have the same goal. Do you have the same experience, Matti, previously?
Yes, it was a large product divided in different teams, and each team was about 5 developers and QAs. Basically, the way to coordinate our work was to have a Scrum, is like a daily meeting of Scrum Masters.
Okay.
Probably not daily, but weekly at least.
Yes.
Yes, in addition, I think that when you have very little Agile experience as a Scrum Master, you should be like a methodology guardian, you know. So I think that explain how the thing should flow is a must-do thing in this kind of situation, and you should try to avoid make a full implementation of Agile at once, right? Probably you can choose some of the most valuable artifacts of the Agile methodology and apply them progressively, right? Probably the daily meetings, the planning sessions, the retrospective meeting, because it's very easy when you know how it works, but probably understand all at once. It can be from time to time a little tricky.
Okay, I remember something, Mati. The other day you mentioned to me that Agile is like a contract because we are responsible to fulfill the process. That is so important for us to remember.
Yeah, it's a contract between the team with the client and the Scrum Master with both of them, right? And why I say that it's a contract, because we have to respect this artifact that we define, because it's gonna help the team and the client to reach the goal and to build the product that they need.
On the other hand, the Scrum Master could be a coach. Is that correct?
I think it is a coach. Yeah. I don't know if a coach is a guardian. Yeah, it try to accommodate things to make that the parts respect the methodology, right? To log the times, to keep track of the task, to report if they discover some kind of risk. I think that is a guardian, and at the same way, it's like a service provider. It's a facilitator. It helps the team to keep rolling, to try to achieve and facilitate the information that they need to achieve the goal of the sprint. Is a facilitator to a product owner that help him in order to define or discover new things in the project and possible risk. So, yeah. It's a little of a lot of things.
Thanks. And the other, when feedback and evaluation are not taken into proper consideration during the sprint, we have to think that we have a post-mortem analysis helps the team grow and improve. Sometimes we have blend teams, and this kind of evaluation is so good for us, especially today that we have different places to work. And it's so important to have this feedback. For us, retrospective meeting is so important. The client, the team, and Scrum Master participate. It starts with the team doing a demo, and then the retrospective to analyze what worked well and what didn't. How do we avoid threats in this situation? The tips. Firstly, apply brutal honesty to bring to the meeting the best feedback and achieve active listening. For us, brutal honesty is one of the values of Agile. Remember that it's a moment of truth that is ideal for sharing both positive and negative aspects, as well as improvement ideas. The Scrum Master must push to have the improvement plans implemented in the next sprint, resulting in continuous improvement, and we need this feedback of the people to be better on the next sprint. During this meeting, the team must do a self-evaluation of how they work, identifying strengths and weaknesses. Of course, we have to think in personal aspects, for example, some issues, and we have to attack these issues and avoid it in the next sprint. The idea is to work together and help the other person. Avoid the destructive feedback that can destroy good relations between team members. The feedback should also be individual. Sometimes we have to work a lot on that because some people understand bad what is a feedback. If we do it very frequently, the people could learn about their visions and what things they have to change and how the team have to change, because it's not only each person, it's all a team that can change, for example, some attitudes, how to work in technical sides. What's your opinion, Mati?
Well, I think that this is a key point on the Agile methodology. I think that the retrospective meeting, it helps you adjust the way that the thing flows. My mentor said that Agile is fail fast, yeah, discover what you have to adjust and make changes and try again, right? So I said probably in the retrospective meeting, all the team members, and when I said team members, the client is part of the team, yeah? I say it shares what problems they faced during the sprint or what things can be done in a better way. So as a Scrum Master, the responsibility is to listen to them, to listen to the problem and ask them for a solution, because the ones who mention a problem, most of the time they already thought in a solution. So I think that they most of the time have the answer for their problems. So and something very important is to take an action based on this. Agree with the team a course of action and execute it in the next sprint, because this is gonna make the difference in a retrospective meeting. Because if you, as a Scrum Master, you do not implement these kind of things or these changes or this adjustment, it's gonna it's unuseful meeting. Yeah, it loses its sense. So
Other thing that we have to do if we are the Scrum Master is to care the environment and have a good environment to work. When I mentioned you brutal honesty or moment of truth, the idea is to be honestly, but the idea is not to attack the other person.
yes,
We work a lot of time and we are more with our partners and our team members than our family sometimes. And we have to care the environment. It is so good to think on that, to have a good environment, friendly environment,
yes.
and sometimes thinking an informal moments to be a team. That could build a mature team when we enjoy this time.
Yes, remember that the success of an agile team is not based in a single particular success. If the whole team finish what they were committed to do, that is success. It is worthless if just one or two members only finish with this. So, as a Scrum Master, you are a moderator, right? So, in this kind of meeting, you have to create new bridges to reach people, not destroy them. Yeah. So, good practice. Be polite. Be honest on this meeting, but be careful also. Yeah, because it's very important to trust in the other team members.
Yes, and other thing that is important when the stakeholder couldn't participate during the meeting is to send a report, because it's good to be in the same page. Okay, on the next situation, when there is a little experience in virtual or remote work, this situation is a risk when team members may not know how to handle a remote relationship. Today we are thinking in a global world. It is to thinking how to work, how to push a good communication. What's the matter is we have a bad communication. Team members that do not interrupt frequently, there is a lack of definition, and there are poor interpretation of requirements or language sometimes. In short, there is misunderstanding. Agile can help improving remote work and in turn become a competitive advantages for us. Of course, we are thinking that we are working with people in different parts of the world. How do we avoid both threats in this situation? The tips are the team, including the client, must learn to use communication tools effectively, because sometimes we are using bad and we need to analyze how to work with this tool. The team needs to consider both geographic difference as well as cultural difference. For example, the time zone, we have to respect that we need to use the same time zone. Sometimes it's impossible. It is to identify which hours are the best for us to have a meeting, or share some tools to share, for example, the meetings, or to really avoid problems when the other people are sleeping. The idea is to have the same time zone. No, the idea is to have the same time to be together working. A company must implement spaces. I am talking about the meeting rooms to improve communication and integration. For example, in our company, we have special places to talk. We have special microphones and special sounds. The idea is to have the best place to communicate with our client and to be concentrated to work. The proper tools must be made available for formal communication and informal communication. One of the things that we have to do when we begin a project, the idea is to think in the tools that we are going to use and how to communicate. Sometimes for our clients, it is good to use, for example, an email as informal communication, but others, normally it's a formal communication. If we are going to take some decision, which tool we have to use, for example, we have to discuss that. It is important because sometimes the people use the wrong tool and we can fail in our projects. When faced with conflicts, the expected attitude should be always empathetic. It is to think in the attitude that we have, and the idea is to have a win-win relationship. The idea is not to negotiate to fail. On the other hand, team members need to understand what a finished task is, as it was agreed at the beginning. Ideally, the idea is to identify the definition or the concept of done. It is to work together during the sprint zero. The result is higher transparency, improved collaboration, and ultimately higher quality software product. What's your view, Mati, about that?
Well, distributed team is a challenge, right? Because not always is the client remote. Sometimes it's the team members remote. So one of the key points is to have a good communication, right? In order to accomplish this, I would suggest to use a camera, good microphones, be in a quiet environment in order to be able to listen without problems. Yeah, the fact of being distributed is not only be in a different geographical place, it means probably different languages and a lot of challenges. So create a nice and a quiet environment is always be helpful. In addition, one of the things that I think is a value in the Scrum methodology is the honesty, right? When you have a daily meeting, you have to report the progress of every task, and a good way to have a vision as a Scrum Master is that the team members be honest on the progress. They're to keep the things updated, and when there is a delay, to mention it. Yeah. As a Scrum Master, we have to provide as much information as we can to the remote members, right, in order to level the knowledge and be available the whole time. Because as a facilitator, we have to connect probably the questions of the team members with the knowledge of the product owner. In some occasions, we are like a kind of a bridge between the technical aspect and the knowledge about the business.
One of the things that we can use in remotely project is to have, for example, a web page or a Facebook site and share some informal things. As I remember in some projects, the people put their pictures about their vacation or families or something that is funny, and it is to share some information about the other team members. Other is to share, for example, a breakfast remotely. At the same time, could be lunch for one and could be the breakfast
Sure.
for other. But it is to share some moments. And the other are the visits. That is important.
Of course. Those kind of things create a totally different relationships, right? To be face to face with a client, to be face to face with another team member, it always creates a nice environment and create a better relationship and a stronger one. So I think that it's a good advice to visit your client or the client to visit the team, or as a Scrum Master to visit the remote co-workers or the even the client also. Yes.
I don't know if the audience know that we are in Mendoza. Mendoza is very famous about the wine, and one of the things that we can do there is to share some wines. That could be a good moment here, an excellent moment. Okay, the last one situation is when the company mixes different agile methodologies. Companies sometimes create a new version of the process, but one which is distant from a real agile process. For example, some teams use Scrum, that is Scrum plus Kanban, or hybrid methodologies, Agile plus Waterfall practices, or mixing predictive with empirical elements. What's the matter with that? If we think in software industry, for example, we have an evolution. For example, we can use Scrum for when we have to develop a product when we begin in zero, we can say we don't have nothing. And the idea is to think in when we have, for example, other kind of industry, mechanical, electrical, etc., or we are maintenance software, it is useful to use Kanban. The idea is to identify which process is better for our project. We can think that we have different alternatives. In Agile, the idea is to use the best for the process. The idea is not to enforce to use one or other. We have to think that to do our project, we need the best process to do it. Sometimes Agile could be not the best for your project because, I don't know, you have a very longer project and you couldn't divide, you don't have a backlog, you don't have a product owner, you don't have a team to do it. It is to identify when you can use Agile. How do we avoid threatening this situation? Each project must be analyzed individually to understand what's the best for it. You can work on a brainstorming session with the people in your team at the beginning of the project, include the entire team, the product owner, the Scrum Master, the stakeholders. If you have a consultant, an Agile consultant to help you, for example, ideally during sprint zero, so previous that, and you define the process. In that meeting, individuals should state clearly what they expect of the project, common goals, results, meeting, events, activities, roles, deliverables, and releases. This plan should be revised frequently to manage deviation or propose improvement. I remember one project that we began the Sprint Zero with this brainstorming, and we have remotely people in different 3 places, one in New York, other in Milwaukee, and here. And when we began discussing about the project, the first thing that we have done was, okay, what do we expect of this project? Which process we need? What are we waiting when we finish the project? What we would like to do during the project? And all the people in order make a brainstorming, and we respect the idea of each of them. And at the end, the person who is coordinating the meeting, it was a Scrum Master, and he have a list, and we review the list, and we decide that. And the idea next was to identify our process, because we add new things to the process that we have normally in Agile. For example, we mentioned to you grooming. Grooming is not mandatory to use in Agile, but it's a good lesson that we have. And it is to share with our client, and we suggest them to use. It is so good when we have this kind of sessions. If we have to make a conclusion of all the things that we said, the first thing is to be flexible. That's help and support the client. The idea is to have a very visible process, and have a visible product, and have a good communication, and have good team members who are happy to work together. We need to change our traditional thinking. The idea is to think how we perform our projects. When we use Agile in a project, we must understand Agile if it's setting up an environment to work and be flexible to develop a project. We have to work in our communication to be more effective and maintain harmonious and professional relationship. The team and the stakeholder, it is not to have a bad environment, it is to have a good environment. We can identify the Agile best practices that we can apply in our project. We have to balance the practices that we need to be successful. And when we talk the balance of the practices, I need to think in a good process for our project. When we apply correctly an Agile methodology, we add value and benefits to our projects. Okay, that is all for me. I don't know, Charles, would you like to add other things related with the tool that we have?
Yep, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you very much, Monica and Matty, for a fascinating presentation. I would like to remind the whole audience that we do have a few minutes left, so do feel free, if you have questions, that if any points have come out of this perhaps which aren't clear, or if you it's raised any ideas from you that you would like to put to our panelists, then please do ask a question, and you can do this either via the chat on the right-hand side of your screen on the GoToMeeting, or you can do it via Twitter using the hashtag #AgileTheNewBlack. But whilst we're waiting for a couple of questions to come in, as Monica mentioned, we have taken many of the ideas and the principles which underlie this presentation as to whether or not you have balanced Agile processes. Are they robust? Are they weak Agile processes? And we've created a self-assessment tool, and this is a tool that you can download in Excel. And it's got a series of questions which you can ask yourself and which you can use to evaluate your own specific Agile processes in your organization. So you can see where you lie on that spectrum from having weak to strong Agile processes. And I believe we're just going to put that into the chat box there, so you can just click on the link. And if you're listening to this on recording, then look to the description of the recording there. You can, again, you'll be able to see the link as well. But just whilst we are, we had a couple of questions coming in on the registration page before the webinar, and one of those questions was if we can talk about the company-wide versus project-specific aspects of Agile. Do you have to have a consistent approach in the organization when perhaps multiple or different people are involved? Monica, Matty, do you have any perspective or opinion on that?
Yes. The idea is what's the number one ranked priority to start up an Agile team. If we think on that, first of all, the product owner have to prioritize their issues, their user stories in one side, but in the other side, we have to think that we can prioritize our things to do when we begin with a project. The idea is to think in sprint zero. We have a special spreadsheet that we have to discuss and complete, and we think in what things we need to begin with the project. For us, it's so important to have the Scrum Master in one side and have the product owner on the other. We have to think in the architecture, the goal of the project, how to work together. If the client is going to visit us or we're going to visit them, it's not necessary or mandatory to do it, but we suggest that to our client. And we have to identify the roles that we need inside of the team, because sometimes we have a special, special developer with a special profile, and we have to search that. We have a recruitment area, and we have to work with them to search this if we don't have inside of a company this position. On the other side, when we begin, we have to think in, of course, the people. If we have, different releases, if we need more people for the first release, not to the second one. It is to identify the size of the team. And if, for example, if we have a very big project, the idea is to identify if we need 2 teams. There are lots of things that we need to prioritize or to work together. The first thing is the contact to the client, with the client, sorry, and it is to discuss together what things is more important for you. And next, we suggest you to change the prioritization, or we work together, because one of the things that is the most important for us is the business. Because sometimes, for example, if we have a project that we have to refactor all of the code or part of the code, we have to think that the client needs to maintain us in the business. That is the things that we have to think that.
Excellent, thank you. Matthias, would you add anything there, or?
No, I totally agree with Monica. Basically, yeah. I think that if you have to pay attention to something, or if you want to move to Agile, I think that you should do it in a progressive way, taking care about the good practice from the very beginning, right? Respecting the number of people who is going to be participating, defining the roles, and allocating the necessary time to apply it in a correct way. Yeah, because in the other way, it's very probably that you fail in the way.
Yes, you mentioned other thing that is important. Of course, the first one could be, but sometimes the first thing that we discuss is the objective of the goal, what are the requirements of the business or the environment of the client, is to think if it's a new project or we have to maintain the project, to identify if we're going to use Kanban or Scrum.
Of course, identify the nature of the project. It's a maintenance project, it's a very repetitive project, it focuses on the continuous delivery, it focuses on changes. There are several variables that you have to take into consideration in order to choose the correct methodology that applies to the nature of the project that you're going to face.
And another question that we ask to our clients, if they have a process. Sometimes our clients could have a very good process, a traditional, and when we begin discussing about the process, we identify what things are important for them to maintain us. And sometimes we agree on a new process that we add Agile practices, and the idea is to have a balanced process. The same as when we began, the idea is to identify how to work together. We have very good lesson learned. We have some clients to ask us, how do you help on that? How do you support on that? And we suggest them what things we can do. That is the good experience that we have in our company and in our people, because the important thing is the people to work.
Absolutely. And I think actually that ties in very much. We received one other question from the chat as well, saying, but I think it's very closely related to what you've just been discussing. But the question was, if you do anything, what is the #1 ranked priority to start up an Agile team?
I can answer. I think that one of the first steps to take in the creation of an Agile team is to identify who is going to be the product owner, right? And I think I mentioned something in the first question, and it is allocate some time for him, yeah, in order to be available for the team, in order to create a product definition, in order to be able to answer questions when the whole team be working. So I think that the first step, and one of the most important, is choose a correct product owner that have time to be a product owner. Yeah, because from time to time it requires sometimes in order to prioritize, to answer questions, so I think that is one of the key points.
Yes, when we begin a project, we normally define the communication plan, and on that we introduce our people, the roles of them, the scope of their responsibility, and next the client has to do the same. And that is the moment that we identify the product owner, the business analyst, the architecture or the IT people. The idea is to identify who's who, identify how to contact them, if we are going to use, a special tool to chat, or the phone number, etc. The idea is to be in contact with the right people. That is the first step normally.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And I know we're nearly at the top of the hour now, but we had one other question which came in on the registration page for the webinar, and that was they're interested about applying Agile to mechanical, electrical, or software new product development projects. Are there any differences, perhaps, to if you're applying Agile to, if it's say mechanical engineering versus electrical software?
Yes. Yes. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, I think that you have to identify how the process flows, right? And based on this, you will have to choose which Agile methodology you will be using. I think that probably you can use both, depending on the nature of the project. You can choose Kanban, or you can choose probably Scrum, but the problem is how to choose them, right? Try to identify how the nature of the project that you are going to face, and check which artifacts provides each of the Agile methodologies, and try to figure out which one is the one that applies in a better way to what you are trying to the project that you are trying to apply on.
Yes, other things sometimes when you're talking about this kind of industry could be the devices that we are going to use, depending on the scope of the project, which things we have to do, what thing we have to develop or to test, for example. That is not a problem. The idea is to identify the goal, the scope, what thing we can do it, because sometimes we have a blend team. The client have to do part of the application, and we're going to do the other part of the application, or the client do the hardware and we have to do the software, for example. The idea is to have the same process, and the idea is to identify the deadlines and work with the plan that we can have there. For example, you mentioned Kanban is so useful when we have to maintain software. Normally the people suggest to use that when we have to maintenance. If we have, for example, a new project, I don't know if we are going to have a product with a software part, the idea is to work together to adjust the time and the plan to deliver things when the client needs.
Right.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I see we don't have any further questions at the moment, and we are right at the top of the hour now. So I think it's a good time to wrap up and to bring the webinar to a close. I'd like to say a very big thank you to Matthias and to Monica for sharing your expertise today. It's been incredibly insightful, at least for me. It's been fascinating. You can see our contact details here on the slide for everyone on the call. So do feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions, if there are any aspects which made you think differently about Agile, then please do reach out to us. I hope our passion for Agile has come across. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the call today, that this is what we do. Bellatrix is everyone in the company is trained in Agile. Everyone is using it every day. So we're very much involved in Agile, in the Agile community as well. So I hope this has been useful for you. And if you, as mentioned, if you do have any follow-up questions, then please do reach out to us. With that, thank you and have a good rest of the day.